UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer says Britain and France have agreed to work with Ukraine on halting hostilities in the country's 3-year full-scale war with Russia. The announcement comes as the British leader is hosting French President Emmanuel Macron and other leaders for a summit on ending the war and bolstering the continent's defence posture. Its importance has been magnified by the unprecedented scolding Ukrainian President Volodymr Zelenskyy received at the White House on Friday. Well, President Donald Trump accused Zelenskyy of being ungrateful for US help. Starmer said he's focused on bridging those differences.
We've now agreed that the United Kingdom, along with France and possibly one or two others, will work with Ukraine on a plan to stop the fighting. And then we'll discuss that plan with the United States. So in those calls on Friday night, through the meeting yesterday, into the calls again last night, I think we've got a step in the right direction because, as I say, nobody wants to see what happened on Friday, but it's really important that we keep our central focus, which is lasting peace.
Straight to London now, and DW's Birgit Maas, who is standing by for us and following today's crucial summit on Ukraine. Birgit, great to see you again. So what is the aim of the gathering today?
Prime Minister Keir Starmer has said that he's building something of a coalition of the willing. So it's really about what Europe and what the wider West can do to support Ukraine. The question on many leaders' minds that are gathering here in London will be how much the US is willing to support the war in Ukraine going forward. How are the security guarantees by the US? And they will try and work out a plan amongst themselves. What can they contribute? Keir Starmer has said that he's clear that he needs European leaders to increase defense spending and also to coordinate more when it comes to defense. So he's trying to assume a leadership position within Europe and within the wider West.
So essentially, is he sort of taking on this role of being a bridge between Europe and Washington?
Yes, that's his aim. We have seen him reaching out to President Macron, and also he has met the Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni this morning, who's also said that they have the same mindset. Keir Starmer is really trying to reach out to President Trump to not have those bridges burned. We saw him traveling to Washington last week, and he was very pleased with the meeting. We had very positive messages after these briefings. However, Keir Starmer has also made clear that he is supporting Ukraine. He is supporting President Zelenskyy, and what he will want to achieve in his meetings with other leaders from Europe and the wider West, to see what they can do, what they can offer the US. So they are clear that they want some sort of security guarantee from the US, so that it's not just a ceasefire, but something that the US also brings to the table in order to make sure that this is a lasting peace. So it's a lot for them to discuss then when they're meeting here in London today.
Yeah, plenty on the agenda by the sounds of things. Well, meanwhile, President Zelenskyy is also set to meet with King Charles. Now, this is just a few days after Keir Starmer brought an invitation letter to the UK, to Donald Trump. Is the monarch playing a role in the current state of affairs?
I don't think anybody is assuming that the monarch is going to enter in some sort of political negotiations. I think he's being deployed as an asset. And when Keir Starmer extended this letter, this personal letter by the king to President Trump, he did it on camera. And the president was clearly very impressed with this. And Keir Starmer went out of his way to impose on President Trump how unprecedented it is that there is a second state visit. So clearly it's an asset, and Keir Starmer is doing that to make President Trump feel important. And he's really going out of his way to say that the US and the UK are really joined and that they're fighting for the same cause. They have historic ties, and that implies also a responsibility on the side of the US. So Keir Starmer is trying to keep President Trump as close as he can, really.
Thanks for that update, Birgit. DW's Birgit Maas in London for us. Well, for more on the European view, let's go to Brussels now. And DW's correspondent Terry Schultz is standing by. Terry, great to see you today. So Europe wants a greater role in negotiations to end the war in Ukraine. It also wants Ukraine to be an equal part in these talks. But would Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin even allow that happen?
Well, we have to say that Russia is pretty happy with the status quo right now, Pablo, where the Americans come to meet the Russians bilaterally to talk about things like this, with, Ukraine not at the table, the Europeans being told they're not even going to be invited. But this is not okay for Europe. It's dangerous not to be at the table when the future of territory that is very crucial to your own security is being discussed. And that's why you see today's meeting in London, for example, and it's all very calculated to keep Ukraine close. Birgit was talking about Starmer keeping Trump close, but look at how carefully they have shown that Ukraine is an equal part of these discussions. It can't be otherwise, especially for Europe. And so they're going to do everything they can. Indeed, to present this united front and then to take it to Trump. And if Trump says this is how things will go, Vladimir Putin can't say no. I mean, he seems to be running the show right now. Putin's sitting in the Kremlin, being happy about all of this chaos that's happening over here. But if indeed the Europeans and the United States agree on a path forward, Putin will have to agree or he'll be exposed as absolutely not wanting peace.
Terry, I just want to jump in there because we're actually seeing live images there of Donald Tusk, who's limping in beside Keir Starmer there at Lancaster House in London. And meanwhile, you can maybe get yourself a drop of water, Terry.
Thank you.
But yeah, we're seeing the leaders there arriving in London. We saw Emmanuel Macron there. Of course, Poland's leader, Donald Tusk, has now arrived. We saw Giorgia Meloni earlier at Downing Street. And we're expecting the leaders of several European countries, of course, along with Canada and senior official, we believe the foreign minister, if I'm not mistaken, of Turkey, who will also be present there. Back to you, Terry. So how quickly can Europe move as a bloc to increase their defence spending and ramp up manufacturing weapons?
Well, they could move very quickly, and they've known for a long time that they needed to. I mean, this problem actually existed even before Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine. But, Pablo, we've mentioned this before, how many things we've called wake-up calls, and then it seems like they don't wake up. And the full-scale invasion of Ukraine is one more of those things where countries said, wow, we don't have enough weapons. We're sending our stockpiles to Ukraine, and we've got nothing left. So they've known they needed to do this, but I think perhaps, I mean, I could be proven wrong, but I think perhaps the decline, the deterioration of the relationship between the U.S. and Ukraine was so shocking to European leaders that they really are now going to have to get their heads around what they might have to do on their own if the U.S. entirely cuts off support for Ukraine militarily and financially. There's no doubt in some of these countries' minds that Vladimir Putin will be able to beat Ukraine and then come for them. So this may actually be the moment where they're sitting around a table saying, we've run out the clock.
Yeah, we're just seeing their images, Terry, as you're speaking of Mark Rutte, of course, the NATO Secretary General arriving now at Lancaster House in London, there with Keir Starmer. Keir Starmer has been hanging around the entrance door, just making sure that all the senior officials and leaders are welcomed into Lancaster House, a pretty historic place in itself, there in central London, a hop, skip and a jump from Buckingham Palace. Back to you, Terry. Now, we've been talking, of course, about European leaders there at this summit, but there are some noticeable absences who are not actually in London. Is Europe united and powerful enough, though, to support Ukraine in an increased capacity?
Yeah, to that point, the Baltic states were not invited. The countries that give up to, have promised to give up to 5% of their GDP on defense and who are right there on the front line. They were not happy about that, but we've received some information from Downing Street that Keir Starmer spoke with the Baltic leaders today. That's not the same as inviting them, but he's tried to reassure them that their interests are being taken into account. But while there are some notable absences, as you say, there are also some notable attendees. And I would mention Turkey here and Canada. So this is not just Europe going it alone. This is basically all of the other big NATO allies coming together in London to show a united front. I mean, if anything, they're going to make the U.S. feel excluded on this if Donald Trump is not willing to continue to have ties with Ukraine to restore this relationship. They very much wanted, Keir Starmer and the others, they very much wanted to show a united front. Now, you've always got problems like Hungary and Slovakia on the European Union side blocking the aid package that's currently being negotiated. But as Keir Starmer said, he's trying to build a coalition of the willing there. The European Union is finding ways to do that themselves.
Yeah, interesting times. And of course, we'll be keeping a close eye as those leaders one by one arrive at Lancaster House. Terry, I'm sure I'll be speaking to you at some point later today, and I hope you can get a drop of water. I need one too. DW's correspondent in Brussels, Terry Schultz.